The Kazdari Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, 300 warships materializing in perfect combat formation. The massive vessels, their hulls adorned with the scarification patterns of previous conquests, formed a shimmering constellation of destruction against the starfield. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons and missile arrays, technologies perfected over millennia of interstellar warfare. On the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, Commander Zelthor's chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the crimson battle lights. The command deck buzzed with the excited clicking of his officers, veterans all, who had participated in 17 successful planetary subjugations in the past cycle alone. "Transition complete, Commander," announced his navigator, 6 limbs working in perfect coordination across the dimensional controls. All vessels report successful emergence. The primitive detection systems of the third planet show no indication they've observed our arrival. Zelthor's mandibles clicked in anticipation. He strode to the tactical display, towering over the holographic representation of the solar system. His faceted eyes studied the blue-green world that would soon join the hegemony's growing collection. "Fascinating," murmured Science Officer Vexkar, hunched over her scanning equipment. Despite their technological limitations, these humans have established rudimentary colonies on their moon and neighboring planet. Their energy signatures suggest early fusion technology. Zelthor dismissed this with a wave of his upper limb. Primitives often achieve minor feats before proper civilization arrives to guide them. What of their defenses? Communications Officer Thraz Wohl twisted his eye stalks toward his commander. "We've intercepted and decrypted their military transmissions. They speak of defense satellites and planetary shields, but our scans detect nothing beyond primitive kinetic weapons and chemical rockets." Laughter rippled across the bridge, a harsh, clicking sound. Intelligence reports indicated humans were barely spacefaring primitives who had only ventured beyond their moon within the last century. The hegemony had delayed cataloging this system precisely because of its perceived worthlessness. Only recent scans revealing unusual mineral deposits had brought the Kazdari here at all. "Begin standard intimidation protocol," Zelthor commanded. "Deploy the fleet in hemispheric positioning. I want their planet encircled before they comprehend what's happening." The navigator initiated the maneuver, but stopped abruptly. "Commander, movement detected leaving the third planet's orbit." Zelthor tilted his head. "Their primitive satellites shifting position." "No, sir. It's a vessel. Accelerating at..." The navigator's voice faltered. "Sir, it's accelerating at rates our engines cannot match. Heading directly toward our position." The tactical officer's appendages trembled as he reported. "Single vessel, approximately 1/8 the size of Indomitable. Configuration unknown. No visible weapons arrays. No energy signatures matching known propulsion systems." "Impossible," Zelthor growled. "Show me." The view screen shifted, displaying a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, with subtle geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. No external engines were visible, yet it moved with impossible speed. "They're broadcasting," Commander reported Thraz Wohl, surprise evident in his voice. "In our language. Perfectly translated." "Put it through," Zelthor ordered, mandibles twitching with curiosity. The communication screen activated, revealing a pink-skinned alien with fur only on its head. It wore a dark uniform with minimal ornamentation. When it spoke, its voice was calm, measured, the voice of a predator confident in its position. "This is Captain Amara Chen of HMS Thunderchild, representing the United Earth Government. You have entered sovereign human space without authorization or diplomatic clearance. You have 60 seconds to reverse course and return to Kazdari space." Zelthor stared at the screen in disbelief, then burst into laughter that echoed throughout the command deck. His entire bridge crew joined in the mockery. "They send a single ship," he managed between clicks of amusement, "and demand our withdrawal." "Sir," the tactical officer interrupted, "the human vessel is scanning us. The energy signature is unusual." Zulk Thor dismissed this with a gesture. Prepare the invasion broadcast. Let us educate these humans on their new position in the galactic hierarchy. Captain Amara Chen terminated the transmission with the alien commander and leaned back in her command chair. The bridge of HMS Thunderchild hummed with quiet efficiency. 30 crew members operating a warship that, by conventional galactic engineering standards, should require hundreds. They're exactly as the Black Archive predicted, remarked Lieutenant Commander Okafor, his dark eyes scanning the tactical display where 300 red dots represented the Kazdari fleet. Arrogant, technologically predictable, and completely unaware of what they're facing. Chen nodded, reaching for the ceremonial teacup resting in a custom holder beside her chair. The porcelain vessel had seen 4 generations of her family through naval battles on Earth's oceans. Now it witnessed humanity's first interstellar confrontation. She took a deliberate sip, a calming ritual before combat. "Quantum shield status?" she asked. "Operating at 99.8% efficiency," replied Lieutenant Santiago from the defensive systems station. Her fingers danced across quantum blast interfaces that responded to both touch and thought. Phase harmonics stable across all spectral bands. Dimensional anchors locked. Through the viewports, Earth diminished behind them, a fragile blue marble wrapped in the thin protective film of atmosphere. For 60 years, humanity had monitored transmissions from distant stars, while appearing radio silent to the greater galactic community. For 30 years, they had prepared for this inevitable moment. "They're scanning us again," reported Ensign Park, the youngest officer on the bridge. "More intense this time. They're trying to penetrate our hull shielding." Chen smiled slightly. "Let them look. Their sensors are calibrated for conventional technology. They'll see only what we want them to see." The Thunderchild represented the pinnacle of human innovation, a vessel designed not by following the technological path of other species, but by pursuing quantum mechanics and dimensional engineering while the rest of the galaxy focused on plasma weapons and kinetic barriers. The ship didn't use conventional engines. It manipulated space-time itself to move. Its weapons didn't fire projectiles or energy. They rewrote the rules of physics within targeted areas. "Comms, patch me through to Earth Defense Command." The main view screen shifted, displaying the weathered face of Admiral Hernandez from his command bunker deep beneath the Atlantic. Behind him, officers monitored the unfolding situation from dozens of stations. "Captain Chen," the Admiral acknowledged, his voice grave. "The full Security Council is monitoring. The Kazdari formation matches the Black Archive projections exactly." Chen straightened in her chair. "Permission to initiate Protocol Omega, sir." The Admiral's eyes flickered, the slightest hesitation that only someone who had served with him for years would notice. This wasn't just another military action. This was humanity announcing its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. "Permission granted. Give them the 60-second warning as planned." His voice softened slightly. "And Amara, make it count." The simulator runs were impressive, but this is history now. Chen's hand moved instinctively to the small frame inset on her command console, a photograph of her daughter Elizabeth, now a xenobiology researcher working on Mars. Everything they did today would shape the world Elizabeth inherited. "They're preparing to fire, Captain," announced Lieutenant Santiago, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Plasma torpedoes being armed across their forward line. I'm detecting targeting scans." Chen closed the channel to Earth and addressed her crew. "This is what we trained for. The Kazdari believe they're facing a primitive species making its first tentative steps into space. What they don't know is that while they were conquering worlds with brute force, we were unlocking the fundamental secrets of reality." She placed her teacup down, centering it perfectly in its holder. "Lieutenant Vasilev, prepare quantum cascade. Target all vessels except the flagship." She paused, then added, "ATGNA, begin full combat operations." The ship's air responded in a calm, feminine voice that resonated through the bridge. "Combat operations initiated, Captain." Quantum cascade preparing for target acquisition. All systems optimizing. Chen opened a channel to the Kazdari flagship once more. Commander Zelkthor, this is your final warning. Reverse course immediately, or face the consequences of your aggression. The alien commander's mandibles clicked in what intelligence analysts had identified as their equivalent of dismissive laughter. Your bravery is noted, human, but misplaced. Allow me to demonstrate the futility of resistance. On the tactical display, 20 plasma torpedoes launched from the Kazdari frontline ships, streaking toward the Thunderchild like miniature suns. Impact in 15 seconds, reported Santiago. Chen gave a single nod. Activate phase shields. The plasma torpedoes streaked toward Thunderchild, each containing enough energy to vaporize a pre-spaceflight city. On the Kazdari flagship's bridge, Commander Zelkthor leaned forward expectantly, his chitinous fingers gripping the edges of his command chair. The bridge crew had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on the view screen where the human vessel made no attempt to evade. Impact in 3, 2, 1, counted the weapons officer. The torpedoes reached Thunderchild and vanished. No explosions, no impacts, no debris. They simply ceased to exist upon crossing an invisible boundary surrounding the human ship. Stunned silence fell across the Kazdari bridge. Report, Zelkthor barked, rising from his chair. The science officer's appendages trembled as she worked her instruments. Impossible readings, Commander. Our torpedoes didn't detonate or miss. They disappeared from normal spacetime. Magnify visual on the human vessel, Zelkthor ordered. The view screen zoomed in, showing Thunderchild completely untouched, continuing its approach at steady velocity. Scan that shield technology. Science Officer Vexkar's voice quavered. Their defensive field doesn't register as energy at all, Commander. It appears to be a localized dimensional phase variation. The torpedoes may have been shunted into another reality layer. Zelkthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. In 3 centuries of hegemony expansion, they had encountered many defensive technologies, but nothing that could simply remove matter from existence. Open the channel again, he commanded. Captain Chen's face appeared on screen, her expression unchanged. No triumph, no relief, merely professional detachment. Your demonstration is noted, Commander, Chen said calmly. You have 43 seconds remaining to withdraw from Sol system. Zelkthor fought to maintain his composure. An impressive defense, human. Your shield technology is unexpected, but you remain hopelessly outnumbered. One ship cannot stand against our armada regardless of its defensive capabilities. Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. This isn't about numbers, Commander. This is about technological paradigms. Your civilization followed one technological path. We chose another. On Thunderchild's bridge, Lieutenant Santiago monitored the Kazdari fleet's movements. They're repositioning, Captain. Surrounding us in 3-dimensional attack formation. Chen nodded. As expected, they believe our defenses will eventually overload with sufficient firepower. 30 seconds remaining in the ultimatum, ATNA announced. Meanwhile, on the Kazdari flagship, the tactical officer presented a new strategy. Commander, I've analyzed their dimensional phase shield. If we coordinate our fire from all vessels simultaneously, the energy requirements for their system must overload. No technology can maintain such dimensional manipulation indefinitely. Zelkthor clicked his approval. Prepare the fleet for synchronized barrage. All weapons. I want that vessel reduced to its component atoms. The communications officer's voice cut through the preparations. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the human homeworld. Multiple sources. Ignore them, Zelkthor snapped. Their leaders doubtlessly wish to beg for mercy. No, sir. They're not transmitting to us. The officer's eye stalks quivered in confusion. They appear to be common entertainment broadcasts. Music, fictional narratives, educational programs. Vexkar looked up from her science station. Sir, I believe they want us to see these. The signals are being deliberately strengthened in our direction. The view screen split into dozens of feeds showing human daily life. Children in schools, families in parks, scientists in laboratories, artists creating works of beauty. No panic, no worldwide alerts, no mass evacuations. "They're not afraid," whispered Vexcar. 300 warships in their system, and their civilization continues uninterrupted. For the first time, genuine uncertainty crept into Zulk Thor's mind. Either the humans were concealing their fear through elaborate deception, or they had absolute confidence in their lone defender. 20 seconds remaining, Commander, Captain Chen announced, breaking into his thoughts. "I suggest you consider your next actions carefully. Once our countdown expires, diplomatic options become significantly limited." Zulk Thor drew himself up to his full height. "The Kazdari hegemony does not retreat, human. Your single vessel, regardless of its unusual technology, cannot hope to defeat us. Prepare to witness the full might of our armada." Chen's expression showed the faintest hint of disappointment. "As you wish." She terminated the communication. On Thunderchild's bridge, Athena announced, 10 seconds remaining in ultimatum. Chen looked at her weapons officer. "Lieutenant Vassiliev, prepare quantum cascade. Target all vessels except the flagship." "Quantum cascade armed and ready, Captain. All targets locked," came the steady reply. 5 seconds. Athena continued the countdown. Chen took a final glance at her daughter's photograph. 3, 2, 1. Ultimatum expired, Athena announced. Captain Chen's voice remained calm as she gave the order that would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. Initiate quantum cascade. Deep within Thunderchild's central chamber lay a device unlike any other in known space. Where conventional weapons projected destructive force outward, the quantum cascade reached inward to the fundamental fabric of reality itself. The spherical core pulsed with soft azure light, surrounded by interlocking rings of exotic materials harvested from the depths of Jupiter's atmosphere and Saturn's rings, elements that existed nowhere else in the galaxy in these precise configurations. Initiating quantum cascade. Lieutenant Vassiliev confirmed, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. Power flow stable. Dimensional anchors holding. Athena's voice resonated through the bridge, establishing quantum entanglement with target vessels. Phase 1 initiated. On the main tactical display, 300 red points appeared, each representing an instantaneous quantum link with a critical system aboard an enemy vessel. The connections bypassed conventional space entirely, creating correlations at the subatomic level that no known shielding could block. Synchronization at 20%, Athena reported. 40%. 60%. Captain Chen watched the process with measured calm. The quantum cascade was revolutionary not because it delivered more energy than conventional weapons, but because it fundamentally ignored the concept of distance or physical barriers. It didn't attack ships from the outside in. It rewrote reality from the inside out. "Multiple weapons locks detected," announced Lieutenant Santiago. "The Kazdari fleet is preparing synchronized barrage." Chen nodded acknowledgement but remained focused on the cascade progress. Time to completion. Synchronization at 80%, Athena answered. Estimated time to full deployment, 3.2 seconds. On the Kazdari flagship, Commander Zulk Thor raised his command limb. Fire. All vessels, all weapons. 300 warships unleashed their arsenal simultaneously, a barrage of destructive energy unprecedented in local space. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, and gravitic disruptors converged on the lone human vessel. "Enemy weapons fire incoming," Santiago reported, her voice steady despite the visual spectacle unfolding through the viewports. "Impact in 2.6 seconds. Maintain phase shields," Chen ordered. "Quantum cascade status. Synchronization complete," Athena responded, preparing dimensional phase inversion. Outside, the vacuum of space remained visually unchanged, despite the cascade activation. No energy beams emanated from Thunderchild, no projectiles launched, just silence as the weapon operated on principles beyond conventional physics. 1.2 seconds to enemy weapon's impact. Santiago counted down. Vasiliev's hands stabilized the cascade harmonics. Dimensional inversion ready, Captain. Chen gave a single, decisive nod. Execute. 3. 8 HENA began the final countdown. 2. 1. Cascade initiated. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a subtle distortion rippled through space around the Kazdari fleet, a barely perceptible shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. On Thunderchild's bridge, displays showed energy readings spiking off conventional scales as reality itself was locally rewritten. The incoming weapon's fire disappeared mid-trajectory, caught in the same dimensional shift affecting the fleet that launched them. Commander Zelkthor felt it first, a strange vibration through the deck plates of his flagship, as if reality itself had become uncertain. Warning alarms blared across his bridge as officers frantically reported cascading system failures. Power core destabilizing. Weapons offline. Dimensional breach detected in engineering. Through the viewport, Zelkthor watched in horror as his magnificent fleet began to fold. Ship after ship imploded in perfect silence, each collapsing into a point of brilliant blue-white light before vanishing completely. No explosions, no debris, just empty space where warships had been moments before. The flagship shuddered violently as nearby vessels disappeared. Only the Indomitable remained untouched by the cascade effect, deliberately isolated by Thunderchild's precision targeting. "What's happening?" Zelkthor demanded, his voice rising to a pitch never before heard by his officers. Science Officer Vexkar stared at her instruments in disbelief. "They're gone, Commander. Not destroyed. Removed from our dimensional plane entirely. My readings suggest they've been shifted into a pocket dimension where the laws of physics are incompatible with conventional matter." On Thunderchild's bridge, Athena confirmed. Quantum cascade successful. 299 vessels removed from normal spacetime. Flagship systems neutralized as specified. Lieutenant Vasiliev checked the temporal metrics. 4.6 seconds from initiation to completion, Captain. Deployment was 0.2 seconds faster than our best simulation. Captain Chen allowed herself a small smile as she reviewed the after-action display. In less than 5 seconds, humanity had announced its technological superiority to the galaxy in terms no spacefaring civilization could ignore. "Target their flagship's primary systems," she ordered. "Communications, weapons, propulsion. Leave life support and minimal power. I want them helpless but comfortable enough to consider their situation carefully." "Targeting complete," Vasiliev confirmed. "Secondary cascade ready." "Execute," Chen commanded. "Then prepare boarding protocols. I think it's time we introduced ourselves properly." The Kazdari flagship Indomitable drifted in the void, its main power offline, weapon systems dead, propulsion neutralized. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the bridge where Commander Zelkthor stood frozen before the viewport, staring at the emptiness where his magnificent fleet had existed moments before. "Damage report," he finally managed, his voice barely audible. His first officer, Grax Till, consulted a flickering console. Primary systems non-responsive. Secondary power grid functioning at minimal capacity. Life support stable but limited to 12 cycles. Communications array functioning but restricted to short range only. Casualties. None reported, Commander. Whatever they did, it affected our technology, not our personnel. Zelkthor's compound eyes remained fixed on the stars. 300 ships, 40,000 crew. Gone in an eye blink. Science Officer Vexkar approached cautiously. "Commander, I've completed preliminary analysis of the human weapons effects. It appears to be a targeted dimensional displacement field that selectively removed our vessels from normal spacetime." "Removed to where?" Zelkthor demanded. A pocket dimension where standard physical laws are incompatible with matter as we understand it. But she hesitated. The energy signature suggests the effect might be reversible. They didn't destroy our fleet. They imprisoned it. This revelation struck Zelthor with unexpected force. The humans hadn't simply demonstrated superior firepower, they had shown restraint. That realization was more terrifying than any weapon. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted. "We're being hailed by the human vessel." "On screen," Zelthor ordered, straightening his posture despite the humiliation burning through him. Captain Chen appeared, her expression serene. "Commander Zelthor, I trust you've had sufficient time to assess your situation." "What do you want, human?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. "In approximately 14 minutes, a diplomatic shuttle will dock with your vessel. I will be leading a delegation to discuss the terms of your surrender and the future relationship between humanity and the Kazdari hegemony." Her tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing a routine meeting. "You expect me to allow your boarding party onto my vessel after what you've done?" Chen's expression didn't change. "I expect you to recognize the tactical reality, Commander. Your fleet has been neutralized. Your flagship is disabled. And to be perfectly clear," her voice cooled several degrees, "what you witnessed was not our most advanced weapons system. It was merely the most appropriate for this encounter." The implication sent a chill through the Kazdari bridge crew. Vexkar's appendages trembled as she whispered to her commander, "She's telling the truth. The energy efficiency of their weapon suggests it's an adaptation of some other technology, not its primary purpose." On Thunderchild, Captain Chen terminated the communication and turned to her senior staff. "Prepare the boarding party. Standard protocol. 6-person team. Full diplomatic credentials. Minimal visible armaments." "Security concerns, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Commander Okafor. "Minimal. Their internal sensors are offline, so they won't detect our personal shield technology. Even if they attempted hostilities, our phase barriers would protect us." She stood, straightening her uniform. "More importantly, I want them to see humans up close, to understand what they're dealing with." 15 minutes later, Thunderchild's boarding shuttle docked with the crippled Kazdari flagship. The airlock cycled, revealing a dimly lit corridor designed for beings a foot taller than humans. Captain Chen led her team. Science officer, tactical specialist, xenolinguist, diplomatic liaison, and security officer through the alien vessel. They encountered shocked, disoriented Kazdari crew who pressed themselves against bulkheads to allow the humans passage. None offered resistance. The universal translators at their throats picked up whispered conversations. The ship killers. They unmade 300 vessels with a thought. Why did they leave us alive? Chen noted these reactions with satisfaction. Fear wasn't her goal, but respect was essential for what would follow. They reached the bridge to find Commander Zelthor standing rigidly by his command chair, surrounded by senior officers frozen in various states of shock and disbelief. The massive view screen showed only stars where his fleet once dominated space. Chen stepped forward, her boarding party forming a protective semicircle behind her. The translator at her throat converted her words to the clicking, chittering language of the Kazdari. "Commander Zelthor, I am Captain Amura Chen of the United Earth Government. I'm here to discuss the terms of your surrender and humanity's introduction to the galactic community." The bridge of the Indomitable fell silent as Captain Chen stood before Commander Zelthor. The contrast between them was stark. The Kazdari towered nearly 7 feet tall, his exoskeleton scarred with the ritualistic markings of dozens of successful campaigns, while Chen stood barely over 5.5 feet, her only adornments the modest rank insignia on her collar. "I've studied your kind extensively, Commander," Chen said, breaking the tense silence. "The Kazdari believe strength demands respect. I trust our demonstration has established our credentials in terms your culture understands." Zelthor's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of forced restraint. "You've proven your weapon's effectiveness, human. What are your demands? Chen gestured to her diplomatic liaison, who activated a holographic display between them. Three-dimensional schematics of the Sol system appeared, with territorial boundaries clearly marked. The United Earth government claims sovereignty over the Sol system in its entirety. We require formal recognition of these boundaries by the Kasdari hegemony, acknowledgement of our technological standing, and assurances of non-aggression. And if we refuse? Chen's expression remained neutral. Your fleet remains intact, Commander, merely displaced. We can return them to normal space, or not. The choice is yours. Science Officer Vexkar edged forward, her curiosity overcoming protocol. Your technology. It violates principles we thought immutable. How did your species develop dimensional manipulation while remaining confined to a single star system? Dr. Marcus Lee, Thunderchild's science officer, answered with a gentle smile. We chose a different path. While most galactic civilizations pursued plasma weapons and shield harmonics, we explored quantum mechanics and dimensional engineering. Our isolation wasn't imprisonment, it was deliberate. Chen nodded. For 60 years, humanity has monitored transmissions from distant stars. We learned about the hegemony, the Myriad Collective, the Tsinka Concordat, all while appearing radio silent to the greater community. This revelation sent a visible shock through the alien officers. Zulk Thor's compound eyes widened. You've been watching us. Studying you, Chen corrected. Learning your languages, understanding your technologies, assessing your intentions. When we detected your long-range scans of our system 6 months ago, we accelerated our preparation timeline. Lieutenant Santiago transmitted a file to the Kasdari main computer. This contains navigational data for your return journey to hegemony space, as well as preliminary diplomatic protocols for establishing formal relations. Zulk Thor stared at the data scrolling across his screen, then back at the human captain. You prepare for peace even as you demonstrate war. The concept seemed to confuse him deeply. That's precisely why we spared your flagship, Commander. Thunderchild could have removed every trace of your presence from this system. Instead, we chose to establish communication. Chen stepped closer, looking up at the towering alien without a trace of intimidation. Humanity doesn't seek conflict, but neither will we tolerate threats. The Kasdari commander studied Chen with new understanding. His species respected power above all, and these humans had displayed power beyond anything in known space. Yet they offered terms rather than annihilation. What happens now? He asked finally. Chen gestured to the diplomatic liaison. You will return to hegemony space as our emissary. You will deliver our terms, along with evidence of this encounter, to your leadership. 1 month from today, a human diplomatic vessel will arrive at your capital world to establish formal relations. And my fleet. Upon confirmation that our terms have been accepted, we will return your vessels to normal space at designated coordinates within Kasdari territory. Chen's expression softened slightly. Your crew members are experiencing a form of stasis within the pocket dimension. For them, only moments will have passed. For the first time in his decorated military career, Commander Zulk Thor recognized complete defeat. But more unsettling than the loss was the realization that these humans had calibrated their response perfectly, demonstrating overwhelming power while simultaneously extending diplomatic courtesy. Tell me, Captain, he said, mandibles clicking slowly, if we had retreated when you first warned us, what would have happened? Chen's lips curved in a slight smile. We would have established communication, welcomed you properly to our system, and begun diplomatic relations immediately. The quantum cascade was always our last option, not our first. This answer seemed to disturb the Kasdari commander more than any show of force. His species understood aggression and conquest. They had practiced both for millennia. But this calculated restraint, this precise application of overwhelming power followed by reasoned diplomacy, it was unlike anything in their military doctrine. Zulk Thor straightened to his full height and performed the Kasdari gesture of formal concession, right upper limb pressed against his thorax. The hegemony will receive your terms, Captain Chen, and I suspect they will find them unusually reasonable given the circumstances. His compound eyes fixed on her. But know this, they will never rest until they understand your technology. Chen nodded. Understanding is the foundation of peace, Commander. We look forward to sharing knowledge, once proper relations are established. She extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Zelkthor enfolded it carefully in his much larger appendage, marking the first formal contact between their species. And in that moment, the galaxy's balance of power shifted irrevocably. The Grand Chamber of the Hegemony Council on Kasdar Prime fell into stunned silence as the holographic recording ended. 52 representatives from the most powerful Kasdari houses sat motionless, watching the empty space where moments before they had witnessed 300 warships vanish in the span of seconds. Supreme Overlord Kha'Zix IV, ruler of the hegemony for 3 centuries, rose slowly from his ornate throne. His exoskeleton, augmented with ceremonial platinum inlays denoting his supreme rank, caught the light as he stepped forward. "Is this recording authenticated?" he demanded, voice reverberating through the chamber. High Admiral Frex Tool, head of the hegemony's combined fleets, bowed deeply. "Verified at all levels, Eminence. The quantum signature is Commander Zelkthor's. The temporal markers are unaltered. What you have witnessed occurred exactly as shown." The Supreme Overlord's compound eyes fixed on the solitary figure standing at the center of the chamber. Commander Zelkthor, once among the hegemony's most decorated fleet leaders, now stood alone, the bearer of unprecedented defeat. "Explain yourself, Commander," Kha'Zix demanded. Zelkthor straightened. "The humans possess technology beyond our current understanding, Eminence. Their dimensional manipulation capabilities rendered our conventional weapons useless. A single vessel defeated 300 warships." The skepticism in Kha'Zix's voice was cutting. "Not defeated, Eminence. Removed." Zelkthor activated a data crystal. "Science Officer Vexkar's analysis confirms our fleet wasn't destroyed. It was displaced into a pocket dimension. The humans can restore it at will." Murmurs rippled through the assembled counselors. War Minister Throlzak leaned forward. "And they sent you back to deliver terms. Why not simply destroy your vessel as well?" "They wish to establish diplomatic relations," Zelkthor replied. Captain Chen made it clear that while they have no interest in conquest, they will defend their territory with overwhelming force if necessary. Kha'Zix clicked his mandibles dismissively. Pretty words from a species that has just revealed itself. This quantum cascade could be their only significant weapon, a singular technological achievement they deployed to intimidate us. Science Minister Klevzor, who had been reviewing the technical data in silence, finally spoke. "Forgive me, Eminence, but the energy efficiency readings from this weapon suggest it is an adaptation of some broader technology, not its primary purpose. If dimensional manipulation is their baseline capability." The minister's voice trailed off, implications clear. "There's more," Zelkthor said grimly. "They've been monitoring our communications for decades. They speak our language fluently, understand our customs, our tactics. Their isolation wasn't due to ignorance, it was strategic." A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the council processed this revelation. The hegemony had expanded unchallenged for centuries, encountering no species with technology that could match their own. Until now. "What precisely are their terms?" the Supreme Overlord asked finally. "Recognition of Sol System as sovereign human territory, non-aggression pacts, establishment of formal diplomatic relations." Zelkthor paused. "They will arrive in 1 standard month to begin negotiations. Upon successful completion, they will return our fleet." War Minister Throlzak's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "This is unacceptable. No species dictates terms to the hegemony." "Perhaps," said a quiet voice from the chamber's edge, "this is one that can." All eyes turned to Elder Viektaw, oldest member of the council and keeper of the ancestral archives. The ancient Kazdari rarely spoke during military matters, but when he did, tradition demanded attention. Our historical records, the elder continued, speak of the ancient precursors who mastered dimensional engineering before vanishing from the galaxy. For millennia, we believe these accounts were merely legends, his gaze fixed on the holographic display of Thunderchild. What if some of their knowledge found its way to Earth? Supreme Overlord Kha'Zix considered this in silence. Then, with deliberate movements, he activated the Council's secure communication array. The massive view screen above the chamber illuminated, showing the space above Kazdar Prime. Gasps echoed through the chamber as HMS Thunderchild appeared on screen, towing the massive Kazdari flagship behind it like a trophy. The human vessel, tiny in comparison, manipulated the larger ship effortlessly with a tractor beam technology unknown to hegemony scientists. They followed me, Zelthor explained, to demonstrate their good faith by returning the Indomitable to our control, and to ensure their message was delivered. The Supreme Overlord's compound eyes narrowed as he studied the small ship that had single-handedly altered the balance of galactic power. "Open communication with the human vessel," he commanded. Captain Chen's face appeared on screen. "Supreme Overlord Kha'Zix, I am Captain Amara Chen of the United Earth Government. I trust Commander Zelthor has delivered our message in terms." Kha'Zix drew himself to his full height. "He has. The Hegemony Council will require time to consider your proposal." Chen nodded. "Of course. Our diplomatic vessel will arrive in 30 days as arranged. In the meantime, we return the Indomitable to you as a gesture of goodwill." The connection terminated, leaving the council chamber in silence once more. War Minister Throlzak broke the quiet. "Eminence, we cannot allow this challenge to go unanswered. The hegemony must." "Must what?" Kha'Zix interrupted sharply. "Dispatch another fleet for them to remove from existence. Deploy weapons that cannot penetrate their defenses." His voice lowered. "No, Minister. For the first time in 3,000 years, the hegemony faces a power it cannot immediately overcome through force." He turned to the assembled council. "We will meet these humans as equals and learn everything we can about them and their technology. Only then will we determine our true response." Elder Viekta nodded approvingly. "Wisdom at last. Perhaps these humans will teach us more than just the limits of our power." 6 months later, the orbital diplomatic station, Harmony, rotated serenely at the edge of Sol system. The gleaming structure, with its distinctive spiral arms and crystalline observation domes, had become the focal point of humanity's rapidly expanding interstellar relations. Admiral Amara Chen, recently promoted following the Kazdari incident, stood at the primary observation deck, watching the procession of alien vessels awaiting clearance to dock. Ships from 17 different species, some longtime members of the galactic community, others newly emerging powers, formed an orderly coup monitored by sleek human patrol craft. "Quite a change from when we stood alone against their armada," observed Lieutenant Commander Santiago, now Chen's chief of security for the station. Chen nodded, studying the Tsinga diplomatic cruiser currently undergoing entry protocols. 6 months ago, the galaxy didn't know we existed. Now we're hosting the first interspecies technological exchange conference. With us as the featured attraction, Santiago added with a hint of pride. Dr. Elizabeth Chen Williams joined them, carrying a tablet filled with conference schedules. The Admiral's daughter had transitioned from her xenobiology research on Mars to become one of humanity's key scientific liaisons. The Regilian ambassador finally stopped asking about the quantum cascade. Elizabeth reported, handing her mother a cup of tea. "I think he finally accepted that we're not going to share the technical specifications." Chen accepted the cup with a slight smile. "Persistence is a trait we share with the Regilians. How's the cultural exchange program developing?" "Extraordinarily well. The Kazdari students are particularly enthusiastic. Their understanding of material sciences is helping our fusion containment research, and they're fascinated by our literature and music." Below them on the main concourse, humans mingled with aliens of various forms. A group of Kazdari youth, immediately recognizable by their distinctive exoskeletons, followed a human instructor learning Tai Chi, their once fearsome warrior culture finding unexpected value in human philosophies of balance and harmony. Former Commander Zulk Thor arrives within the hour, Santiago noted, checking her security brief. His request to establish a permanent Kazdari cultural center on Earth has been approved. Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. The same commander who was going to turn humans into biological resource material. The very same, Chen confirmed. He's become quite the scholar of human history. His latest academic paper drawing parallels between Earth's ancient warrior cultures and Kazdari expansion periods has generated significant interest in both our worlds. A notification chimed on Chen's personal device. Supreme Overlord Kha'Zix had formally signed the Treaty of Sol, recognizing Earth as a full member of the Galactic Council with all associated rights and protections. Humanity's membership application has been approved, Chen announced. Effective next Galactic Standard Month, we'll have voting rights in interstellar affairs. Rather quick for a species that was unknown half a year ago, Elizabeth observed. That's precisely why, her mother explained. Our approach confused them. We demonstrated overwhelming power, then immediately offered peace and cooperation. The old powers expected either weakness or ruthless conquest from newcomers. Our restraint was more puzzling to them than our technology. The station's AI announced the arrival of the Myriad Collective Science Delegation, requesting Admiral Chen's presence at the welcoming ceremony. As they walked toward the diplomatic reception area, Chen paused at a small memorial installed near the central hub. A simple hologram showing Thunderchild facing the Kazdari Armada, forever commemorating the moment humanity announced its presence to the stars. You know, Chen confided quietly to her daughter, the Quantum Cascade was actually our third most advanced weapon system. The Security Council is still debating whether to acknowledge the existence of the others. Elizabeth's eyes widened slightly. Is that why you insisted on diplomatic solutions so strongly? Chen nodded solemnly. Power requires responsibility. We could have used the dimensional folding array or the quantum consciousness interface, but either would have revealed too much, too soon. She brushed an invisible speck from her uniform. Better to show them just enough of our capabilities to earn respect without triggering fear. A small group of Kazdari scientists approached, led by Science Officer Vexkar, now the hegemony's chief liaison to Earth. Once adversaries, they now collaborated on joint research initiatives, exploring the boundaries between Kazdari material science and human dimensional engineering. Admiral Chen, Vexkar greeted with the newly established human Kazdari hybrid gesture, right upper limb pressed against thorax, followed by a slight bow. Supreme Overlord Kha'Zix sends his personal regards along with confirmation that your fleet has been successfully reintegrated into normal spacetime at the coordinates you specified. Chen returned the gesture. We're pleased the transition was successful. I trust your military has found all vessels and personnel intact. Precisely as you promised. For them, only moments passed. Vexkar's compound eyes displayed what humans had learned to recognize as thoughtful curiosity. Many still struggle to understand how your technology functions, but all have gained a profound respect for your species' capabilities. As they continued toward the reception hall, Elizabeth whispered to her mother, "Do you ever wonder how differently this could have gone if we'd chosen aggression instead of diplomacy after the demonstration?" Chen watched the diverse gathering of species ahead, former enemies and new allies coming together in ways unimaginable 6 months earlier. That was never an option, she replied. We didn't develop dimensional technology to conquer stars, but to understand them. The Kazdari incident simply forced us to reveal ourselves before our original timeline. She straightened her admiral's uniform as they entered the hall where the future of interspecies cooperation awaited, a future secured not through centuries of gradual advancement, but through brilliant innovation, careful restraint, and 5 seconds of technological superiority that had forever changed humanity's place in the galaxy.